Hello, tankers, and welcome to another episode of Garage Reviews with Spiral Tarantula. Today I'd like to talk about the Panther, Tier 7 German medium tank. Oh, where do I begin with this tank? I want to like this tank, I really do. I put camo and I've named it like my Tiger, but the Panther is a very underrepresented tank in World of Tanks. Little history on this tank. It was developed in response to the Soviet T-34. It's unique in the fact that it's got sloped armor, unlike the Tiger, which is a very boxy tank. But we're not here for history lessons, we're here for gameplay of tanks. The Panther is not your typical medium tank. This tank does not flank, it does not go out on its own and turn the tide of the battle like you would see in the E-75 or the IS-7 or something like that. This tank, unfortunately, is only good at sniping, and it isn't even particularly good at that, and you'll see here that's because the damage output on this thing is so low, but the accuracy and the fire rate is really high, and the penetration is absolutely insanely high at almost 200 millimeters of penetration. However, when you're plinking rounds into enemy tanks and only doing around 150 damage to them, that is not good. Now you'll notice that the default package of the Panther is the Panther that the Germans actually used during the war. However, in World of Tanks, the default package is almost always the worst package, so I'm going to throw the upgraded package back on there with the 75mm L100 gun. Because the Panther suffers a lot with mobility, it really depends on sniping, or relies on sniping, excuse me. I put a pretty standard loadout for equipment. I put coated optics on there because it does function better as a sniper, so to increase the view range as much as possible is definitely a good idea. Let's move over to cruise next. So, unlike a lot of medium tanks, the Panther has absolutely terrible camouflage rating, so I wouldn't really suggest putting camo on there. Repairs is always a good idea. I have safe stowage to keep the ammo rack from getting hit, and I'm working on Deadeye. Because the Panther suffers from doing so little damage, if you put Deadeye on there and you can increase the chance of critical module damage or crew injuries, you could get an engine fire or something like that, and that'll definitely help you out. As I'm scrolling through these perks and skills, the only other thing I could really recommend is Brothers in Arms. As I said, I only have camo on there just because, for, to make it look pretty, I suppose. As you can see, I'm resetting my ammunition loadouts to nice round numbers, as I commonly do. Something to note, when you do get Deadeye on the Panther, the high explosive rounds, those do not stack with Deadeye because they are high explosive. Deadeye only works with armor piercers, armor piercing composite rigid, and heat rounds, which are high explosive anti-tank rounds. So the high explosives on the Panther are not good for Deadeye. Okay, so armor wise, 85mm on the front, sloped, and about 120mm on the front of the turret. When you're sniping, you always want to sit in an angled position. That's a no-brainer, so you can bounce shots. The Panther does have a really high health pool, however. It's got about, I think 1,270 hit points. So this thing can take some hits, but it suffers in the fact that it can't fight back as efficiently as other medium tanks, such as Soviet medium tanks, which are the absolute worst thing to come up against when you're in a Panther, especially at close range, because this thing is not good at brawling. I wouldn't really recommend the Panther, to be honest, which is really sad because during the war, the Panther was a brawling tank. It would get up and get in the faces of the Soviet and even the American tanks and just obliterate them. But I really can't recommend the Panther. The Panther 2, however, is your typical brawling tank, and I might do a video on that. Anyway, folks, I think that'll about wrap it up for this video.